Hello, everybody. Welcome to this event. My name is Simon Wright, and I am the Director of Programming at Japan House London. This is the second in a series of 3 online events exploring the drinks of Japan, hosted by Japan House London and the Japan Sake and Shōchū Makers Association. Today's event, Discover Shōchū, a distillery visit and introduction, shines a spotlight on Shochu, Japan's most popular domestic spirit. For those of you who have joined us, thank you very much indeed. Just to let you know how this will be conducted, please note that your microphone and webcam will be disabled for the entire duration of the event. However, you can ask questions. Please do use the Q&A feature at the bottom to type your questions for the speaker or hosts at any time throughout this session. If you do not want your name to be attached to your question, you can please simply check the option Send Anonymously. Questions will be collected by Japan House staff moderators, and a selection will be answered live during the event. But please note that we will not be able to answer all questions during the session. There will be time at the end where we will concentrate as many questions as we can to our participants. Please note that the contents of this event will be streamed live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, where a recording will be archived later. So wonderfully today, we're in different locations. I'm in London, at Japan House London in the United Kingdom. We also have participants from Japan, both in Tokyo and in Kagoshima. So thank you very much to everyone participating. We will later be hearing from certified Shochu expert and author Christopher Pellegrini, who is in Tokyo and will give a talk on the distinctive qualities of Shochu. We will then go to Hioki in the very west of Kagoshima prefecture, which is in the very south of Japan, where drinks author Stephen Lyman will give us an introduction to Shochu distilleries, and where we will meet Mr. Komasa Yoshitsugu, the director of the Komasa Distillery, a Shochu distillery with over 130 years of distilling history. And at the end, as I mentioned, there will be an opportunity for guests to ask questions to the speakers. And please do get your questions in if you think of them as we go along, and we will be looking at those throughout. But first of all, I would like to introduce Mr. Utsunomiya Hitoshi, who is the director of the Japan Sake and Shochu Makers Association. Welcome, Mr. Utsunomiya.
Thank you, Simon. Hello, everyone.
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Good.
Thank you. Thank you so much once again for joining us and for sharing the second in the online series of 3 at Japan House London. Many thanks indeed. May I hand over to you, and I'll speak to you a little bit later. Thank you very much.
Hi. Hello, everyone from Tokyo. I'm Hitoshi Utsunomiya, Director of Japan Sake and Shochu Makers Association. We thank you very much for joining the program today. And I also thank you, Japan House London, for this wonderful opportunity. I am speaking at Japan Sake and Shochu Information Center, Tokyo. There are many bottles and pots. If you come to Japan, please visit our information center. Today is the second session. This second session theme is Discovery Japanese Traditional Spirit Shochu. There are about 1,500 sake breweries and 300 Shochu distilleries in Japan. Japanese people enjoy Shochu as much as sake. Unfortunately, Shochu is still unknown to the world I hope this seminar will interest you in Shochu. Please enjoy the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Utsunomiya. As you know, I'm particularly happy about today's event about Shochu, and I'm looking forward to it immensely. Thank you once again. It's extremely kind of you to join us and to introduce Nihonshu and Shochu to all of our guests at Japan House, London. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So next, I would like to welcome Christopher Pellegrini, who will give us an introduction to Shochu. If Christopher can join us. Hello,
Hi, Simon.
Hello, Christopher. Welcome. Thank you so much. You're joining us from Tokyo as well, yes?
That's right. I'm at the Japan Sake and Shochu Makers Association Information Center, which is, as Utsunomiya Sensei mentioned, is a very good resource for learning about Shochu, Awamori, and sake.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. I've never been. I really think I should. Once we're able to travel again, I look forward to being able to go there. Thank you very much, Christopher, for joining us. As I mentioned to Utsunomiya-san, I'm extraordinarily interested in Shochu. And so I'm very pleased that you'll be able to tell us all sorts of things. I know that you've got a wonderful presentation coming up. For those of us watching, I'll tell you a little bit about Christopher. He is a certified Shochu and Awamori expert living in Tokyo, in Japan. He is the author of the Shochu Handbook, the first book about Shochu and Awamori, written in a language other than Japanese. I can see you're a bit of a pioneer here. Thank you very much indeed for introducing the wonders of Shochu and Awamori to the rest of the world. Maybe I can hand over to you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that introduction, Simon. And yeah, let's get started talking about Japan's best kept secrets. And this, it hurts, but it is still true. These are the best secrets culinary wise that Japan still holds. They are spreading overseas, but still there's very little information out there about these drinks. And that's why I'm extremely excited to talk to everyone out there in the world today about these drinks. And hopefully you're going to take something new from this, and you're going to go out and buy some shochu. You're going to go to a restaurant and try some shochu and tell your friends. All right. So let's get started. Now, if we can advance to the next slide, please. And here's the types of questions I get all the time. I'm going to organize my presentation thusly. So what are these drinks? That's pretty easy. Then moving on to how these drinks are unique. And then finally, how are they made? All right. So one thing that we're going to do today, and this is going to be interactive, I want you to, on your smartphone, open a web browser, whatever you want. It can be Chrome, it can be anything. And I want you to go to menti.com. All right, menti.com. And I want you to type in the code that's at the top of your screen. All right, and this is going to be a way for you to participate in the in this seminar as we go, and the results are going to show up in real time. The number for those who are having a hard time seeing it is 7908087, and then you submit, and then we're ready to go. So the first question is, have you ever tried shochu before? And this is what I'm really curious to know. Have you tasted it before? Simple question. Yes, no, unsure, whatever. So pop your answer in there and then hit submit at the bottom. Okay. And as we can see, we've got some bunch of answers coming up here, and it seems like we've got a lot of people who have tried it before, and that's great. Now, shochu, the number of shochu brands that are available overseas is still quite small. There are thousands in Japan, but if you can go out and start asking your local retailer, restaurant, liquor shop, they'll start to source more. They just need to hear the word shochu more. So let's move on to the next slide, if we can. And now it's going to be an actual question. This is a quiz question here. And I can see that a lot of people from around the world have already signed in. I thank you very much. So question number 1, let's do this right now. And here we go. Okay, so question number 1. Yep, let's advance. And you're going to get points here based on correct answers and speed. So you can see the question here right now. What's the correct alcohol range? 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40. What do you think? And this is the correct answer. It may surprise you a little bit. I will remind you that shochu is a spirit. It is distilled like the whiskeys, the gins, the vodkas, the tequilas of the world. And the correct answer is 20 to 30%. All right. Standard is 25% alcohol. And that is common across the industry. 30% is also a little bit less common, but 25 is the main style. Let's move on to the next slide and see who's winning. This is going to be compiled. We've got only the leaders here, but it looks like we've got somebody jumping out to the front. Very nice. Okay, there's going to be 2 more questions, and you can add to your tally in a moment, but let me get on with the presentation here. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so what are these drinks? They are Japan's indigenous spirits. This is not a trend. These spirits have 500, 600 years of history behind them. They are made in every prefecture of Japan. This is not it's not just one specific area. However, Kyushu is the main region of production. All right. Now, this is also, it's not a trend. It's also not moonshine. You should never use that word. You should never use a word like firewater. No, this is very carefully controlled by the Japanese government. There are specific ways and ingredients that can be used to make these drinks. All right. Also, they are made from how many different ingredients? We're talking dozens of ingredients. So there's an incredible variety in this spirits category. It's one of the most diverse categories in the world. And you'll hear more about this later, but it's single pot distilled. Single pot distillation leads to a lot of flavor and aroma in the final product. It's probably the most fascinating and diverse spirit in the world. All right, let's move on to the next frame. So you can make shochu from the ingredients and their koji. If you know anything about koji, you know that it's part and parcel with Japanese cuisine. Without koji, we don't have miso, we don't have soy sauce, we don't have mirin, we don't have sake, and we certainly don't have shochu or awamori, Japan's 2 indigenous spirits. Shochu uses 3 different types, and they're easy to remember, black, white, and yellow. Yellow is what's used in the sake world, only yellow, or 99.999% of sake uses yellow koji. Shochu primarily uses white, but there's also a lot of black that's been used more recently, and yellow is also possible. One other style, it's a rice spirit from Okinawa, awamori, that only uses black koji. But we're going to focus on shochu today. Okay, next slide, please. So, is it similar to, and I'm going to go through this quickly because it can be really confusing. Is it similar to sake and nihonshu? Not really. Sake is a brewed alcoholic beverage. Shochu is distilled. Sake is made from rice, and shochu can also be made from rice, but it can be made from dozens of other ingredients too. So you can have a rice shochu, a barley shochu, a sweet potato shochu, a shochu made from aloe, like aloe vera. You can have shochu made from green peppers. There are dozens of approved ingredients. You'll never find an aloe vera sake. Not possible, right? So that's a big difference. Moving on, the Korean soju thing. Both are spirits. Both are usually clear. Korean soju is a multiply distilled spirit. It's like vodka. That's it. Authentic shochu cannot be multiply distilled. It's single distilled in a pot. It's rare in the world of spirits. Vodka. I just said soju is a like a vodka. Vodka is also multiply distilled, so there's a clear distinction. Shochu tastes and smells like what it was made from. Vodka and soju do not. All right. Moving on, I got a couple more here. Rum. There is a type of shochu that is made with cane juice, or what is called kokuto sugar. Kokuto sugar is an unrefined, very dark, and very delicious sugar made in Japan. However, kokuto shochu must be made with rice koji. And I don't think you'll ever find a rum that has rice in it. Correct me if I'm wrong. All right, last but not least is whiskey. Yes, some shochu is aged in barrels. However, there are certain laws and regulations to limit how similar barrel-aged shochu can become to whiskey. So it's generally very lightly aged. The color is much softer, much lighter, more straw-colored, more light yellow-colored, not the deep amber that you're accustomed to with whiskey, right? Some of the basic differences. Shochu is its own category. It's very unique, it's very diverse, and it's very delicious. Okay, moving on to the next slide. So we're gonna take another quiz question here really quick. And so pick up your phones and let's go to the question. And the question is up on the screen now. What shochu type sells best in Japan? And these are listed alphabetically. Barley shochu, carrot shochu, rice shochu, or sweet potato shochu. Which do you think? Fast answers get more points. 2, 1. What do we have? Time's up. And the results are in. I didn't vote in time, but a lot of people got it right. Sweet potato shochu is the biggest seller in Japan by volume sold. Number 2 is barley shochu. And basically those two styles together are most of the market. That's most of the shochu world. So most people are drinking sweet potato shochu and barley shochu. Now, one interesting thing here is that sweet potato shochu is often made with rice koji. So it's rice and sweet potato together. Barley, on the other hand, has two main styles. One is 100% barley, usually made in Oita prefecture, northern Kyushu. And then there's another style made on Iki Island that is a rice koji barley shochu. That's a very old style. All right, can we move on to the next one? Let's see who's winning. And I can't see because it's too far away, but whoever you are, give yourself a pat on the back. We've got a lot of people with 100% scores here. Okay, good work. Moving on, let's move on to the next part of this seminar. Now, I'm gonna skip through this quickly because my good friend Steven is at a distillery down in Kagoshima right now, and he's going to explain a lot about how shochu is made. Explaining this very simply from left to right, the bottle on the top, the brown bottle, is a shochu bottle. The blue bottle on the bottom is an awamori bottle. And the awamori blue line you can see skips one of the fermentation steps. And Steven's going to explain a lot more about this. But let's think about sweet potato shochu. In the primary fermentation, the primary, what's called moromi, M-O-R-O-M-I, that's usually rice koji. All right, rice koji plus yeast plus water. Secondary fermentation is where you have the main ingredient. In this case, sweet potatoes. Then after that fermentation is finished, it goes into the pot still. It is distilled only once, and you have shochu. You have Japanese culture in a bottle. And you're going to get a lot more information on that, so I'm going to skip ahead to the next slide, please. That's my brief introduction. One thing I want you to realize is that the quality and the history in the shochu industry is so deep, it's so rich, it's so not a trend, it's historic, that there are 4 geographical indications that the WTO has awarded to the shochu industry, and those are from the top to bottom is Satsuma shochu. We're going to hear about that soon when Stephen introduces us to it. Then we have awamori, which is down from in Okinawa. We have Iki Shochu, which is the rice koji barley shochu I mentioned before. And finally, Kuma Shochu, which is made in Kumamoto Prefecture. It's a 100% rice shochu that is made with very high quality Japanese rice. All right, let's move on to a quick image of the southwestern part of Japan. Kyushu is the big island there at the top. That's where most shochu is made. There are so many distilleries on that small island. You shake a stick, you hit 4 of them. It's really amazing how compact that area is and how many distilleries there are. All the way down at the bottom left is where Okinawa is. It stretches almost all the way over to Taiwan. It covers quite a large distance in the ocean, and there's several different styles there, as you can see. Okay, last quiz question that I would like to move on to, and this is for all the marbles. So get your devices ready, and let's see who's going to come out on top. Answer fast to get more points. Okay, here we go. Which of the following is not a common way to drink shochu in Japan? On the rocks, neat or straight, mixed with cool water, or mixed with hot water? What do you think? And here we go. 3, 2, get your answers in. And what do we got? Loading the results. Now, people do drink shochu straight, but honestly, that's not very common. The shochu is made in order to be cut with water many times or another, or maybe some carbonated, sparkling water. That's more common. Drinking shochu really is a slow sipping drink. It's not for shooting. It's not for, high speed. It's the type of spirit that you enjoy with food. It's the type of spirit that you enjoy with friends. It's the type of spirit that engenders community and conversation. And so people will drink shochu over a long period of time together. And that is part of the culture. That's Japanese culture, that's shochu culture. That's hopefully something that you can take in where you live and make part of your culture. So let's see who won. The results are in, and oh geez, it's close. Oh wow, it's really close. And the winner, it wasn't me. Who's the winner? It is Maya. Maya, excellent work. Congratulations. Give yourself a hug because we're being socially distanced here. Make sure you put on a mask when you give yourself a hug. Maybe wear something plastic as well, just to be super, super safe. Everybody else, thank you for participating. And now let's learn some more about how shochu is made. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Christopher. That was extremely enjoyable. Thank you very much. I'm a massive fan of sweet potato shochu, jochu. And when your question came up, is it more common to drink barley or potato? I thought barley, but I'm so pleased that it's potato shochu.
Yes, potato shochu has taken the lead over the last, better part of a decade, and it doesn't seem like there's any looking back. People really started to enjoy the complexity of sweet potato shochu, and it's everywhere now. It's fantastic.
And thank you. I'm very glad to hear it. And thank you for introducing briefly the ways of drinking as well. I mean, I'm a big fan of oyuwari with hot water as well. It's strange for
a man after my own heart. That's the only way I drink it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much indeed. That's it's been wonderful. We'll see you a bit later in the question and answer session. Thank you so much. Thank you. Now, as Christopher said, we will now go down to the very bottom of Japan, to the southern southwest of Kyushu, to Kagoshima. And we will meet Stephen Lyman, who is joining us from the Komasa Distillery. Stephen, can you, hello.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. as I mentioned to Christopher, of course, I'm a big fan of Shochu, so I'm very happy that we're doing this particular event. But of course, my Japan, for me, when I lived there, was also Kagoshima. So I'm especially happy that you're there today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll let everybody know a little bit about who you are. You are the author of the Complete Guide to Japanese Drinks and the founder of the website kampai.us, a Japanese government-sanctioned Shōchū ambassador, and the first American to make his own Shōchū in Japan, the Yamato Zakura Shuzo in Kagoshima. So is that near where you are at the moment? Your own distillery?
It is. It's right up the coast from here. This is on the west coast of Kagoshima Prefecture, and Ichiki Kushikino is about 15 kilometers up the coast.
Well, thank you very much indeed for making the trip down to Hioki, to where Komasa Distillery is. You're going to give us a short introduction to Shōchū Kura, yes, the distilleries where Shochu is made, and then after that you will be joined by Mr. Komasa Yoshitsugu, who is the representative director and president of the Komasa Distillery where you are, the Komasa Jozo, in Kagoshima. If it's okay, can I hand over to you? And I look forward to hearing more about the distillery. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you for the introduction, Simon.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Komasa Distillery in Hioki, Kagoshima. We're going to show a short video about the production that happens in this facility, and then we're going to do a brief tour with a camera to show you the actual space so you get a sense of how it's all set up. So let's roll that first video. This is the exterior of the distillery, and the first step is very much like sake. It's washing rice and then steaming rice. The rice is soaked, and then here they're putting it into the steamer. The rice is steamed, and then the first step is to make that koji that Christopher talked about. Here's the steamed rice going into the koji room. The rice is cooled by hand, and then the koji is actually inoculated onto the rice, and then it's mixed like this to inoculate all of all of the rice grains with the koji. It's then rested for about a day, and you can see here how the rice has gotten dry, and here it's being moved into these wooden boxes, which is to help maintain temperature. And koji also wants oxygen to do its job. This is the koji once it's finished. This is actually black koji being made. And then that goes into the first fermentation, as Christopher mentioned, with water and yeast. This goes for about a week. And then the second ingredient here is sweet potatoes. These are kogane sengan, large starchy sweet potatoes. They are cleaned, cut, steamed, and then mashed. And then that's added into the main fermentation, the second fermentation, along with the koji rice, water, and yeast. That is let run for about 10 days, and then it's distilled. That fermentation is distilled. So now we're going to show you how the space is set up here. We're going to another camera, if we can do that. And here we have the rice steamer. I'm sorry, the rice wash basin. And then directly next to that is the rice steamer and the sweet potato steamer. They're right next to each other. And then back to the other side, back to the other side, that's the koji room, the koji muro, which is a cedar room. And the cedar helps maintain heat, the temperature and humidity, as well as being antimicrobial. And then you can see that in the center of the room is the koji table, and the koji, that's where the inoculation is done, the mixing is done, and then it's left to rest there overnight. The next day it's broken up into the boxes to help maintain temperature more easily. As koji is converting starches to sugars, it's also generating heat, and you don't want it to get too hot or it's not going to give you a good koji propagation. And then once this is finished, which is after about 2 days, it spends about 1 day in those boxes. It's then moved out into the main distillery floor where the fermentation tanks are these clay pots buried in the floor. They're buried in the floor to make it easier for the staff to stir, and also to maintain temperature. You can see in that pot, there's actually a black koji first fermentation going. It's quite dark, and that is the black koji. That's with water and yeast. And then once that first fermentation is finished, it will be moved to another pot in the same room, just a little bit down the corridor here. And this is a black koji sweet potato fermentation. You can't really see the sweet potato in there, but I do believe if we get the camera close enough, you can see the bubbling of the fermentation. When yeast is converting sugars to alcohol, it's both making alcohol and it's also releasing carbon dioxide, and that's where those bubbles come from. Once that process is finished, the final fermentation is around 15, 16, maybe even 17% alcohol, and then it's moved to the still, which is this large cedar still behind me. There are only a few of these left in Japan, these cedar stills, and even though it only spends a few hours in this still, it gets a little bit of cedar aroma in the shochu, in the final product. Now, after distillation, it goes into the holding pot, which is next to it. You may be able to see in the distance, but all of the aging in this particular distillery, in this handmade distillery at Komasa, is done in the basement. So we'll take you down to the basement and just show a quick video down there. These are the aging vessels, and you can see that they're buried in sand, and not in buried, they're resting on sand because of earthquake risk. You don't want to lose this aging shochu to the potential for earthquakes, and that's why the sand is there. So I think that concludes our tour, and we will now introduce Mr. Komasa, the Managing Director and President of Komasa Distillery, and I will socially distance appropriately. Thank you very much. Yotsugu. I'm sorry. Welcome. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
よろしくお願いします。
So would you like to introduce yourself, or shall we begin an interview?
はい。皆さん、こんにちは。コマサ醸造の、代表をしてます、小正義嗣と申します。本日は、どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。
Hello, everyone. I'm the representative director and president of Komasa Jozo. My name is Yoshitsugu Komasa.
Thank you. So just to get started, we'll start with some easy questions. How long has your distillery been making shochu?
はい。はい。創業が1883年で、今年で138年目を迎える蒸留所です。
Our distillery was founded in 1883, so this is our 138th year.
Thank you. And what generation president are you?
はい。私は4代目になります。
Fourth generation.
Thank you. And what kind of shochu does Komasa make?
はい。我々は、さつまいも、芋焼酎を、メインといたしまして、米焼酎、そして麦焼酎を作っている蒸留所であります。
Our distillery mainly makes sweet potato shochu, but we also make rice and barley shochus.
And is the making seasons, is it seasonal, the schedule?
Okay. 8月の末からだいたい12月にかけてメインで作るのが芋焼酎になります。また1月からだいたい6月までに米焼酎や麦焼酎、あるいはそれを使ったリキュールなどを作っております。
From the end of August through to December is when we make our sweet potato shochus. And then from January through to June is when we make the rice and barley shochu and the liqueurs that use those as well.
And Christopher showed the map, which shows that there's a terroir to shochu. So can you talk a little bit about the terroir of Kagoshima, for example, with your sweet potatoes?
Okay. 先ほどお話があった通り、GI に薩摩というものを取っておりまして、我々この鹿児島の地にで作られたさつまいものみを使っておりますが、その中でも今ここにある日置の日吉町という町、そしてその周辺の農家さんに作ってもらったさつまいもをメインに我々は焼酎を作っています。
Yes, as we heard, there is a GI for Satsuma, which uses only sweet potato grown in Kagoshima. The sweet potatoes that we use are from this local area, from Hioki, from the town of Hiyoshi, grown by local farmers here.
またもう一つの特徴といたしまして、ダイレクトに、生産者と、顔の見える、フェイス2フェイスのコミュニケーションを取ることによって、より質の高いさつまいもを作ることができます。
The other thing about our potatoes is that we know the producers. We have a direct face-to-face relationship with them. We communicate with them to ensure we get the best quality sweet potatoes.
Thank you. In the video, we saw koji production. What kind of koji do you use at Komasa?
はい。ビデオにもあった通り、我々も同じですね、白麹、黒麹、そして、日本酒で使われている木麹を使って焼酎を作っております。
And how does that change the flavor or aroma? I'm sorry.
We, as you heard earlier, we use all three types of koji: the white, the black, and the yellow that is usually used for sake.
And how does that change the flavor of your
shochu? 白麹に関しては、白麹を使う焼酎は、芋焼酎は大変切れ味のいいシャープのタイプの焼酎が出来上がります。でまた、黒麹を使った焼酎は、大変コクがあって、芳醇な甘いタイプですね。芳醇なタイプが出来上がります。でまた、木麹、大変これはデリケートな麹でありますけども、それを使った焼酎は非常に柔らかく、甘みのあるタイプの焼酎が出来上がります。
Shochu that uses the white koji is sharp, clear, and crisp. Shochu using black koji is richer, sweet, and full-bodied. And then the yellow koji, which is a delicate koji, makes for a shochu that is softer, gentler, and sweeter.
Thank you. In sake making, the water source is very important. Is that also true for shochu? And if so, what makes good water for shochu?
Okay. この鹿児島は非常に火山灰が多い地域であり、大変水をきれいにろ過をしてくれる地域でもあるので、大変その焼酎に適した非常に柔らかい水となり、大変美味しいものが出来上がる、美味しい焼酎が出来上がる、そういうふうな土壌になっております。
Well, Kagoshima is a volcanic region. There's a lot of volcanic ash in the soil, which filters the water, and the resulting water is very soft and perfect for making delicious shochu.
Thank you. And Komasa Distillery in particular is famous for using different kinds of yeasts. So what are some of the kinds of yeasts that you've been using?
はい。主に使っているのは、その焼酎向けの、酵母、イーストでありますが、最近我々がチャレンジしているのが、焼酎には使われていなかった、例えばワインで使われている酵母、イーストというものを、最近トライアルをして、商品化に結びつけています。
The yeasts that we use are mainly shochu yeasts, but recently we've been experimenting with yeasts that aren't usually used for shochu. For example, wine yeasts, and we've been developing products using those different yeasts.
And how does that change the flavor or aroma, the yeast?
今までは、いわゆる伝統的な、焼酎の香りというものがあったわけですけども、ワインイーストを使うことによって、その酵母自体が作る非常に香りの豊かなタイプの焼酎が、生まれることが分かりました。
Traditionally, shochu has its own aroma, but through using different yeasts, you can have yeasts that have their own rich aroma, and that comes through in the finished shochu.
And we saw the aging basement. So how long do you usually age your shochu? The aging, the jukuse.
はい。焼酎は基本的には蒸留してからだいたい半年から1年で飲用する、飲み物、蒸留酒であります。なぜかと言いますと、その焼酎はですね、原料由来の香り、またさつまいもや麦、お米というものを使って、その原料由来を楽しむものであり、また麹、あるいは先ほどの酵母が作る香りというものを、1回の蒸留でですね、 生まれる、そういったものでありますので、基本的にはその素材というものを、生かした飲み方、飲むということになります。しかしながら、その1年、あとですね、2年や3年寝かすというふうなタイプもあります。そういった場合は、先ほど、クレイポット、亀壺ですとか、あるいはカスクエイジング、そういったタイプでですね、よりまた熟成をさせて、よりまろやかな味わいを作ることができます。
Shochu is generally drunk between 6 months and a year from distillation. And the reason for that is because of the single pot distillation, it retains the aromas of the ingredients, the barley, the rice, the sweet potatoes, and of the yeast and the koji that have been used. And it's drunk early to really make the most of those flavors. But we do age some of our shochus for longer, for 2 or 3 years, either in clay pots or in casks. And this allows the shochu to mature and the flavor to become more mellow.
And what is your most famous product here in Japan?
はい。今こちらにあります、メローコズルという、米、焼酎のカスクエイジングをした焼酎であります。こちらの焼酎は、厳選したお米を使って発酵蒸留し、そしてそれを、多く、カスクですね、に入れて、長年熟成をさせることにより、非常に芳醇な香り味わいが生まれる焼酎が出来上がります。
That would be this one here, the mellowed kozuru. It's a rice shochu. It's cask aged, so the rice is selected, it's fermented, distilled, and then matured in oak casks to give a very mellow and luscious aroma.
And do you have any new products that you're proud of?
Okay. こちら真ん中にありますのが、クラノシコーンズ、ザ・グリーンという商品でありまして、先ほどワインイーストの話をいたしましたけれども、こちらワインイーストを使った芋焼酎になります。こちらのタイプは、今までなかったバナナやメロンといった、そういった芳香な香りのする、特徴項が大変、面白い酒質になっています。
This bottle here in the middle is Kuranoshikon the Green, and this uses that wine yeast that I mentioned earlier. It's made using sweet potatoes, and what is special about this is that you get these fragrant aromas coming through of banana and melon, which you are not used to finding in shochu.
また、こちらのクラノシコンズ・オレンジという商品は、さつまいもをあえて、完熟ですね、寄付ぶどうのように完熟をさせて発酵させて、蒸留したものですけども、こちらは逆にライチのような非常に華やかな香りが特徴の芋焼酎になります。
And then we have this one, Kuranoshikon the Orange, and this one uses potatoes that have been aged before fermenting. You get some wines where the grapes are aged, but in this, the sweet potatoes are aged, and it gives you a very flowery, lychee-like aroma.
Those both sound very good. And my final question is, what do you think makes shochu unique in the spirits world?
はい。500年の歴史のあるこの焼酎でありますが、一番大きな特徴というのは、原料の素材というものを最大限に生かした、蒸留酒であるということ。1回の蒸留で、これまでの多様性のある、酒質が生まれるというのは、世界中の蒸留酒を見ても、この焼酎だけなんじゃないかというふうに思っており、まさに、醸造酒に非常に近いですね、限りなく近い蒸留酒であるというのが、最大限の魅力だというふうに思います。
Well, Shochu, it has 500 years of history, and I think the most distinctive thing about it is that because of the single pot distillation, it really, I think, is a spirit that makes the most of its ingredients. But at the same time, it's so diverse, almost as I would say, as diverse as a brewed alcoholic beverage. It just has much more diversity, I think, than a lot of the other spirits you find.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Komasa-san, for answering all those questions. And thank you very much, Stephen, for your introduction and for conducting the interview. That was marvelous, really very interesting. We can now move on to the question and answer session, which we have scheduled. Perfect timing. Thank you very much. Can I ask Christopher, who's in Tokyo, to rejoin us? Thank you very much. Thank you, Christopher. And I just have one quick question, if I may, to Komasa-san first. I hope you're not tired of my telling people that Kagoshima is where my heart really lies in Japan. But when I was there in Kagoshima, Shōchū was introduced to me for the first time, but it had a rather strong smell. And I wondered whether you've spoken about some varieties, whether there has been an evolution of sweet potato Shōchū, and
Yes.
the feeling is that it's got a little softer nowadays.
はい。確かにその20年前、非常にその昔の焼酎というものは大変特徴が強くてですね、芋の香りというのは非常に強いものがありましたけども、今おっしゃったように非常にソフトになっているのも、あります。また、先ほど紹介したように、大変バラエティ豊かなですね、酒質というものが生まれてます。メロンやバナナのような香りですとか、ライチのような香りの焼酎だったりだとか、これにまた加えて、さつまいもの種類、例えば、先ほど黄金千貫というのがありましたけども、紫色のしたさつまいもだったり、オレンジ色をしたさつまいもだったり、そういったものを使うことによって、よりまた多様性のあるタイプの焼酎が出来上がっている。これが今のまさに焼酎のトレンドだというふうに思っています。
You're right. 20 years ago, back in the day, Shochu did have, sweet potato Shochu did have a very distinctive aroma, and I do think that's got softer over the years. There's also a lot more variety now in sweet potato Shochu. As I was saying, you have Shochus that have an aroma of melon or banana or lychee. There's also more varieties of potato being used, from Kogane Sengan to different varieties of purple and orange sweet potatoes, and that gives you different types of shochu. So I think that's a trend now.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, I thought it was I'm really glad to hear about the versatility and the diversity of shochu now. Let me get on to some questions now from those of you who've been watching. Thank you so much for putting them in. We've got lots of questions. Thank you very much for such an engaging presentation, everybody. Thank you. Can I ask why production is centered in southern Japan? Who would like to answer? Maybe Christopher, can I point that question in your direction?
Sure. Well, you know, we talked about the different types of koji, and yellow koji is obviously a very delicate, adds floral characteristics to whatever it's being used to ferment. But one thing that koji doesn't produce is a lot of acidity in the fermentation. Acidity is very important in fermentation in Japan because a lot of these fermentations are open. They are exposed to the microclimate of that region. And Kyushu is a subtropical climate. Now, if you have a active fermentation going that is really only lightly protected from the environment, you're going to have a lot of other microorganisms that want to jump in there and consume the unfermented sugars like glucose. In order to prevent that, in southern regions of Japan, they rely more on white and black koji, which produce tons of acidity in the fermentation. This goes a very long way to protecting that fermentation from whatever ne'er-do-wells happen to be lurking in the immediate environment.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll go on to the next question here. We have, this is from Jamie Ryder, and Jamie's saying, are there any new GI style shochus, i.e. geographical indicator shochus, that are in discussion? Or do you feel that there could be room for more in the future? Who would maybe like to, Stephen, are you?
Sure. Now, I don't know about discussions. We'd have to ask the place where Christopher is about that, but some other styles that don't have formal GIs at this point are soba shochu, or buckwheat, which was developed in Miyazaki Prefecture, just to the east of here, in the 1970s. And a predominant style now in northern Kyushu, especially in Oita Prefecture, is 100% barley shochu. And those are a couple of styles that I think may warrant GIs in the future, although I'm not aware of current discussions.
Okay, thank you very much. Here we have another question from this is from Harvey. It mentions soba here. Two of my favorites are chestnut and soba shochus. What other materials are used traditionally to make it, aside from the usual sweet potato, barley, and rice? I mean, I think you mentioned soba there.
Yeah, I can maybe speak to that as well, if that's all right, Christopher.
Thank you.
So chestnut actually was a very common style in Oita Prefecture before 100% barley took off. And it's now relatively difficult to find chestnut shochu, although there are brands that still exist. Another style that we haven't mentioned is sake lees shochu. So using the leftover solids from sake production, which have residual alcohol in them. So that's known as kasatori shochu, and that's actually made throughout Japan. And the original reason for that was to salvage the leaves to then use as fertilizer for the next year's rice harvest. So it's got this nice sort of circle of life quality to it.
Mm.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We have another question here. This maybe this is a question. Can I direct this maybe at Mr. Komasa?
Yeah.
Is there a difference in taste between shochu made from different raw ingredients, or does it depend more on the type of koji?
はい。まずは原料の素材の違いによるもので味が相当変わります。例えば、芋焼酎の中でも先ほどお伝えした通り、その芋の品種が変わることによって、そのテイストというものがかなり変わってまいります。また逆に、麦焼酎の場合でも、作り方によって香ばしい香りのするものが出来上がったり、あるいはかなりソフトな、スムーズなタイプのものが出来上がったり、その作り方によっても様々変わってきます。加えて、麹の種類によっても、もちろん変わりが出てきますので、そういう複数の組み合わせによって、非常にバラエティ豊かな味わいのある焼酎が生まれてまいります。
Well, the taste does change depending on the raw ingredients used. Even within the sweet potato shochus, there are, as I mentioned, different varieties of the sweet potato, and that will have a big impact on the taste. Within barley, there are types of shochu, depending on how it's made, that will be more fragrant, or those that will be more soft and smooth. And then it does also depend on the koji. So it's the combination of all of these elements that leads to such a wide variety of shochu.
Thank you very much. And we have a similar question to that as well, which is more effective for the taste? Is it the koji or the yeast?
I think that one's for Komasa-san too.
Okay, Komasa-san, please. Thank you.
はい。もうこれ作り方によっても変わりますけども、例えば、酵母に焦点を当てた、作り方をすると、その酵母も香りというものが目立つような作り方が大事なところになります。逆に麹に焦点を当てた、作り方をすると、その麹のその違いにフォーカスした味わいを作ることができるということで、何が1番で何が2番かということではなく、どれにフォーカスを当てて作るかということが大変重要なポイントだと思っています。
It really depends how you make the shochu. it isn't a case of one thing having more influence over the taste than the other. It depends what you want to focus on. If you want to focus on the yeast, then you can bring out the aroma of the yeast. If you want to focus on the koji, then you can have a shochu that is more impacted by the effect of that koji. So it really depends.
Marvelous. Thank you. Thank you very much. Questions are they're coming in thick and fast. So I'm to continue here. This is, I think, from Harold. Is there a distinction of premium and non-premium shochu? And if so, then what are the key reasons that make one shochu ranked as a higher premium or more expensive than another? Who would like to maybe answer that?
Everything's affordable down here in Kyushu, so you got to go to Tokyo to find things that are expensive.
Or the UK.
Yeah, we don't want anything that's cheap up here. Steven, you want that one or you want me to take it?
Oh, I was sending it to you, Christopher.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that part. Okay. You know, just like everything else in the world, there's a number of factors that can determine actual quality, of course, and perceived quality, scarcity being one of them. And you will find, just as with everything else in the world, that things that are made in limited batches in small quantities automatically have a cachet to them that is going to immediately make it possible to raise the price on the shelf. Having said that, with the shochu industry, just like in the sake world, so many of these makers are history and culture bound and are very limited in their scale of production, but they tend to kind of distribute in their local region. There's so many types of brands of shochu that Steven can get down in Fukuoka, and it drives me nuts, but I can't get up here in Tokyo. Now that's going to add, for Tokyoites, that adds a lot of value, and that without intentionally doing it, it creates this premium aura to a lot of these small brands that have been around forever. These are not marketing decisions. These are brands that have been tested and tried and loved for generations. Now, the famous there's a famous trio, I'm not going to say their names right now, of brands that are super famous. They're known as the 3 M's. And that had a bit of marketing going that helped to raise the prices of those products. But I think now more than anything, it comes down to the attention to detail and the quality of the raw ingredients. And that's where you get real separation. Is it the same level of premiumization as in the whiskey world? No, not even close, at least not in Japan. Could it be and should it be? In my opinion, with the level of artisanship, the artisanal nature of these products, I think it should be. But for whatever reason in Japan, the really, really amazing, hard to find shochu is still shockingly affordable. I don't know, Steven, do you have anything to add to that?
I think you covered it, Christopher.
Okay, thank you very much. We've only got a minute or so left, but I have a couple of questions that I do want to get through before we finish. Just to add to that question as well, we had one very topical. The UK has a trade agreement with Japan now. This is all to do with the United Kingdom leaving the European Union. But so why shochu is very expensive in the UK. I suppose thoughts for the future. I remember at my time in Kagoshima when the price went up for exports of shochu because of, I believe, EU regulation. I wondered whether, you're mentioning that the price in Kagoshima is also lower than in, say, in Tokyo. Sure. Whether you foresee the price coming down in the UK, for example?
That's a really interesting question. I'm not sure what tax and that sort of thing you have on alcohols in the UK. That may be part of what's driving up the price. Obviously, there are costs associated with the shipment and that sort of thing, but it's changing hands several times before it gets to the buyer, to the consumer. the distillery is selling usually to an export company, the export company selling to an import company, the import company selling to a distributor, the distributor selling to a retailer. So each of them wants their cut. So I think probably volume is how you get lower price product. Is as shochu grows and becomes more popular, I think those different layers will be willing to take slimmer margins to drive volume and make shochu more affordable. That would be my expectation.
Okay, thank you. And maybe Stephen, can I add on to that one as well? It's related. It's how much of this is from Bettina Khan. How much of Japan's shochu production is exported? And who drinks it? What's the demographic?
Currently, less than 1% of shochu production is exported. To give you perspective, there is more there's more shochu made in Japan than tequila made in Mexico, but 70% of tequila is export. Less than 1% of shochu, and almost all of that export goes to other Asian countries. There's very little going to the EU or to the US.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have official numbers here, Simon. There's only 2,242 kiloliters exported, or that was exported in 2019. That's a very small fraction of the amount of sake that's exported.
Wonderful, thank you very much. I think it's our mission, is it not, to maybe to try and raise those numbers. One last question, if I may, and this is to Mr. Komasa. We have a question from Nigel, and he says, in whiskey making, the shape of the still is said to be important. Does the same apply for making shochu?
Great question.
全くウイスキーと同じ原理で蒸留をいたしますが、今後ろにあるですね、先ほど木製の蒸留機というものによって、かなりまた味の柔らかさというものが出てまいります。でまた、ステンレスのポットスティールというものを焼酎は一般的に使いますけども、そのラインアームの長さ、ですとか、ボディの形状ですね、長かったり横だったりだとか、様々な形によって、その個性というものが、出てまいります。それが、各蒸留所での味のバラエティーさにつながっているので、全くウイスキーと同じようにですね、ポットスティールの形状により、異なるというのは、大変大きなですね、ポイントだと思います。
Well, shochu is distilled following the same principles as whiskey. And the stills that you saw here, they are wooden. They impart the shochu with a particular flavor and a softness. We also use stainless steel stills. And yes, just as with whiskey, the shape of the still does play a role in determining the finished product, whether it's horizontal or vertical, the length of the arm, the length of the still itself. All of these play a role a very important role in determining the taste of the shochu.
プラス1回の蒸留なので大変面白さがありますね、焼酎は。またウイスキーは2回蒸留だけど、焼酎は1回の蒸留だと。
But what makes shochu so interesting compared to whiskey, which is distilled twice, is that it's a single pot distillation.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of our time all too quickly from what have been marvelous insight to shochu. For those who've already tasted shochu and for those who are about to embark on the wonderful journey, which is shochu from Kagoshima, I have to say. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to the JSS, Japan Sake and Shochu Makers Association, for hosting this with us. We are extremely grateful to you, Mr. Utsunomiya, for this. Thank you to Mr. Komasa.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And to all of your colleagues at the Komasa Distillery. Thank you, Christopher, in Tokyo, for giving us a wonderful presentation and an opportunity to be able to engage with you as well on that. Thank you so much. And Stephen Lyman, thank you so much for conducting the interview and giving us the tour of the distillery there. Good luck with your own distillery as well. I hope maybe when we are able to travel and I do go to Kagoshima again, I'll be able to have a look and see. Thank you so much. And thank you to Bethan Jones, our wonderful interpreter, for helping us along the way. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of those who have been watching and listening today. Everybody who has been here will receive a feedback form by email. Please do fill that in if you have time. It will help us continue to make these events and improve on them. We have more coming up from Japan House. Just a quick look at what we've got. We have the third in the series with JSS, Japanese Drinks at Home, sake pairings and Shōchū cocktails. And that will be on Wednesday, the 3rd of February. We also have connected with our exhibition, which has just now finished as we went into lockdown, Conversations on Architecture with Atelier Bow Wow and MVRDV from the Netherlands. That's on Friday, the 29th of January at 10 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time. And we also have the virtual exhibition of Architecture for Dogs, which you are able to see online, as we are, of course, now closed, unfortunately, here in London. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much, all of you in Kagoshima, Mr. Komasa and Stephen Lyman. Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody in Tokyo, especially Christopher. Thank you so much indeed for taking part. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you all again. Please stay safe.